The sun barely pierced the smog over Seoul's run-down Guryong district, where 17-year-old Kang Tae-ho lived in a cramped fifth-floor walk-up. His apartment was a mess, empty ramen packets on the floor, a flickering PC screen showing a paused zombie shooter, and a half-dead alarm clock blaring at 7 a.m. Tae-ho groaned, smacking the phone to silence it. He'd stayed up until 3 a.m. gaming, his only escape from reality. A sticky note on the fridge from his dad, a night shift security guard, read, "At work. Don't skip school. Food in pantry." Tae-ho sighed, pulling on his worn school uniform, the sleeves frayed from overuse. Outside, he trudged through the alley, avoiding broken bottles and stray cats. Across the street loomed the sleek Skyview Towers, home to the rich kids who looked down on him. He envied their carefree lives, their shiny sneakers, their futures. At Guryong High, life was worse. Tae-ho was the class punching bag, targeted by Lee Min-soo, an 18-year-old delinquent with a cruel streak, and his gang. They'd shove him in the halls, mock his cheap clothes, and once dumped his backpack in a toilet. The worst, though, was Choi Soo-jin, also 18, the school's golden girl. Beautiful, top of the class, and daughter of a tech CEO, Soo-jin lived in Skyview Towers. She'd known Tae-ho since middle school, where he'd once tried to confess his crush. Her response? A cold, "You're like gum on my shoe. Stay away." Her words still stung, but Tae-ho couldn't shake his feelings, sitting near her in class despite her cutting remarks. Today, in the hallway, Min-soo tripped Tae-ho, sending his books sprawling. "Oops, clumsy loser," Min-soo sneered, his friends laughing. Soo-jin appeared, her designer bag slung over her shoulder. "Min-soo, you're embarrassing the school," she said, her voice sharp. "At least pick on someone who can fight back." Min-soo grinned, unfazed. "What? You defending your boyfriend now, Soo-jin? Everyone knows you hate him more than I do." Soo-jin rolled her eyes. "I don't hate him. He's just irrelevant." Tae-ho picked up his books, his face burning, and shuffled to class, wondering why he still cared about her. After school, Tae-ho walked home, his mind heavy. He was done. Done with school, with Min-soo, with Soo-jin's disdain. He considered dropping out, getting a job at a convenience store, anything to escape. Near his apartment, Min-soo and his crew cornered him. "Hey, loser, buy us smokes," Min-soo demanded. Tae-ho, fed up, kept walking. Furious, Min-soo grabbed him, and the gang beat him, leaving him bruised in an alley. "Next time, obey," Min-soo spat, tossing a rock at Tae-ho's head. Alone, Tae-ho limped home, his vision blurry. He wanted it all to end. Maybe he'd climb Skyview Towers and jump. The world could burn for all he cared. That night, gaming to numb the pain, Tae-ho noticed his Discord friends logging off early. "You see the news?" one typed. "Some outbreak in Seoul. Stay safe." Tae-ho frowned, hearing sirens outside. A loud bang at his door made him jump. Peeking through the peephole, he saw his neighbor, Mr. Park, blood-soaked, his eyes blank. "Tae-ho, open up!" the man growled, his voice unnatural. Tae-ho froze as Mr. Park lunged, splintering the door. Tae-ho shoved a chair against it, heart racing. His phone buzzed with alerts. "Unknown attacks in Seoul. Stay indoors. Avoid contact." Outside, screams echoed, and through his window, Tae-ho saw chaos, people tearing into each other, blood pooling in the streets. He tried calling his dad, but the line was dead. Curling up in a corner, Tae-ho turned on the TV. A panicked anchor reported violent attacks by unidentified individuals across South Korea. Busan, Incheon, even rural towns were hit. "Lock doors and windows," the anchor urged before the broadcast cut off. Tae-ho realized it was real. Zombies, like in his games. He'd wished for the world to end, and now it had. But instead of relief, he felt terror. He wasn't ready to die. By morning, Guryong was a graveyard of abandoned. cars, and roaming infected. Tae-ho checked his supplies, 3 packs of ramen, 2 bottles of water, and a bag of rice. Enough for 2 weeks if he rationed. The tap still worked, but power flickered. He needed to secure the building. Arming himself with a kitchen knife, he crept to the main entrance, locking it tight. The upper floors were silent, but on the rooftop, he found a tenant's body, torn apart, and an infected staggering nearby. Panicking, Tae-ho kicked it over the edge, its body thudding below. Guilt hit him. He'd killed someone, even if they weren't human anymore. Back in his apartment, a weak knock startled him. "Tae-ho, it's me, Soo-jin." He hesitated, then opened the door. Soo-jin stumbled in, her designer clothes torn, her face pale. She collapsed, trembling. "They're everywhere," she gasped. I didn't know where else to go." Tae-ho, stunned, gave her water, which she gulped down. "Why here?" he asked. Soo-jin looked away. "Your place? It was close. I saw you that day bruised up. Figured you'd be home." Tae-ho blinked. She'd noticed him? Soo-jin explained she'd been at a mall when the outbreak hit, hiding in a storage room for 3 days with only a soda can. Starving, she'd fled, dodging infected to reach Goryong. "I thought I was dead," she admitted, her voice shaking. Tae-ho, despite years of her cruelty, felt a pang of pity. "You're safe now," he said awkwardly. Soo-jin glanced at his cramped apartment, her nose wrinkling, but said nothing. She borrowed a shirt, his dad's old tee, too big for her, and showered, emerging less like a princess and more like a scared girl. "What do we do?" she asked, sitting on the floor. Tae-ho, unused to her vulnerability, shrugged. "Survive, I guess." Days passed in the dim apartment, lit by candles as power died. Tae-ho taught Soo-jin to ration food, splitting ramen packets into thirds. She complained about the food, the smell, the boredom, but helped wash clothes by hand, manicured nails chipping. Tae-ho patrolled the building daily, learning the infected's patterns. They shunned sunlight, were drawn to noise, and moved slower than humans. "It's like my game," he told Soo-jin. "Stay quiet, stay in the light." She scoffed. "You're such a nerd." But her tone lacked its old venom. Soo-jin opened up, admitting her parents were likely dead. "Dad was at the hospital when it started. Mom, I don't know." Tae-ho shared that his dad was missing, but he'd gotten a text before lines went down. "I'm safe, stay put." They bonded over loss, and Soo-jin's sharp edges softened. One night she asked, "Why'd you keep liking me? I was awful to you." Tae-ho blushed. You, beautiful, smart. I thought maybe you'd see me one day." Soo-jin looked guilty. "I saw you. I just didn't want to." A helicopter's roar broke their talk. Tae-ho rushed to the window, seeing leaflets flutter down. One landed on the rooftop. "Gangnam designated safe zone. Evacuate by tomorrow. Bridges closing." Soo-jin read it, eyes wide. "Gangnam? That's across the Han River. It's too far." Tae-ho shook his head. "My dad might be there. Your parents, too. We have to try." Soo-jin hesitated, then nodded. "Together, then." At dawn, Tae-ho and Soo-jin packed bags with food, water, and the knife. Tae-ho found a metal pipe in the basement for Soo-jin. "Aim for the head," he said. She grimaced but gripped it tight. They slipped into the streets, sticking to sunlit paths. The city was a wasteland, smashed cars, bloodstains, and infected lurking in shadows. Soo-jin's nose wrinkled at the stench, but she stayed close, whispering, "You're braver than I thought." Tae-ho, heart pounding, muttered, "Just don't scream." Near a blocked intersection, they heard voices. Min-soo's gang emerged, armed with bats and crowbars. "Well, look who's alive," Min-soo sneered, eyeing Soo-jin. "Ditch the loser, princess. Join us." Soo-jin clutched her pipe. "I'd rather die," Min-soo laughed. "That can be arranged." The gang closed in, but a roar interrupted. Zombies! Drawn by the noise. Chaos erupted. Taeho swung his knife, slashing an infected's throat, while Soo-jin bashed another's skull. Min-soo's crew scattered, but one thug grabbed Soo-jin, dragging her toward a building. "You're mine!" he hissed. Taeho charged, tackling the thug. They wrestled, the thug's bat grazing Taeho's shoulder. Soo-jin screamed, swinging. Her pipe, cracking the thug's arm. He fled, cursing. Panting, Taeho and Soo-jin hid in an alley. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You saved me?" Taeho shrugged, hiding his pain. "We're a team now." They reached the Han River by dusk, the bridge ahead barricaded with tanks and infected swarming. "No way through," Soo-jin whispered. Taeho spotted a small boat tangled in reeds. "We row across." They crept to the shore, avoiding zombies. As they untied the boat, a figure emerged. Min-soo, bloodied but alive. "You're not leaving me," he growled, raising a crowbar. Taeho pushed Soo-jin behind him. "Run when I say." Min-soo lunged, but Taeho dodged, slashing his arm. Min-soo howled, swinging wildly. Soo-jin threw a rock, hitting his head, giving Taeho time to stab his leg. Min-soo collapsed, cursing as infected closed in. "Go!" Taeho yelled. They shoved the boat into the water, rowing frantically as Min-soo's screams faded behind them. On the river, Soo-jin gripped Taeho's hand. "We made it," she whispered. He nodded, too tired to speak. Gangnam's skyline loomed as they docked at dawn. Military helicopters buzzed overhead and soldiers patrolled a makeshift camp. Taeho and Soo-jin staggered ashore, greeted by medics. "You're safe," a soldier said, wrapping them in blankets. In the camp, Taeho found his dad, battered but alive, in a tent. "Taeho!" he cried, hugging him. Soo-jin searched for her parents, her face falling when a nurse said no one from her father's hospital had arrived. Taeho squeezed her shoulder. They might still make it. That night, under a starry sky, they sat by a campfire. Soo-jin leaned against Taeho. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. "You're not weak. You're everything." Taeho smiled, his heart full. "And you're not so bad yourself." She laughed, a real laugh, free of her old arrogance. Rumors spread of a cure being developed, and Taeho felt hope for the first time. The world was broken, but they weren't. Together, they'd face whatever came next. As the camp bustled with survivors, a soldier approached. "Kid, you're good with a knife. Ever think of training with us?" Taeho glanced at Soo-jin, who grinned. "Only if she can join." The soldier chuckled. "Deal." Hand in hand, Taeho and Soo-jin walked toward the training tents, ready to rebuild their lives in a world worth saving. The Gangnam survivor camp sprawled across a former park, a patchwork of military tents, barbed wire, and flickering solar lamps. Kang Taeho, now 17 and a half, stood at the training grounds, gripping a wooden rifle under the watchful eye of Sergeant Kim, a grizzled soldier with a scar across his cheek. "Again, Taeho! Faster reload!" Kim barked. Taeho fumbled the clip, sweat dripping down his brow, but managed a clean load in 10 seconds, his best yet. Nearby, Choi Soo-jin, her hair tied back, practiced knife throws, her blade thudding into a target. She caught Taeho's eye and flashed a grin, a far cry from the haughty girl who'd once called him gum on her shoe. 6 weeks had passed since their river crossing. The camp housed 3,000 survivors, guarded by the remnants of South Korea's military. Rumors of a cure persisted, but so did reports of infected hordes breaching northern Seoul. Taeho's dad, now a camp cook, had recovered from a leg injury sustained during the outbreak. Soo-jin, however, had no word on her parents, though she clung to hope. The camp was a lifeline, but tension simmered. Food shortages, faction disputes, and whispers of deserters forming gangs in the ruins. Taeho and Soo-jin had joined the trainee program, learning combat to earn extra rations. Taeho's gaming instincts made him a quick study, while Soo-jin's precision and grit surprised everyone. But training wasn't enough for Taeho. He felt restless, haunted by memories of Min-soo's cruelty and the infected he'd killed. "I want to do more," he told Soo-jin one night, sitting by their tent. "Not just survive, fight for something." Soo-jin nodded, her eyes distant. "I used to think life was about winning. Now I just want to make things right." Their chance came when Sergeant Kim called a meeting. Scouts found a hospital in Uedo with medical supplies, and maybe research on the virus, he said. "But it's crawling with infected and looters. I need volunteers." Taeho's hand shot up, Soo-jin's following. Kim eyed them. "You're green, but you've got guts. Mission's in 3 days. Don't D." The Uedo mission team, 6 trainees, including Taeho and Soo-jin, plus 4 soldiers, loaded into an armored truck at dawn. Taeho clutched a real rifle, its weight grounding him. Soo-jin, armed with a machete and pistol, sat beside him, her knee brushing his. "Don't do anything stupid," she muttered. Taeho smirked. "You first." Uedo was a ghost town, its skyscrapers cracked, streets choked with debris. The hospital loomed, its windows dark. The team split into pairs, Taeho and Soo-jin, tasked with securing the east wing. Inside, the air reeked of decay. Blood-smeared walls and overturned gurneys told a grim story. Taeho's game-honed instincts kicked in, scanning corners for movement. Soo-jin's nose twitched. That smell. Infected nearby. A growl confirmed her warning. 3 infected, former doctors, their scrubs torn, lurched from a stairwell. Taeho fired, dropping one with a headshot. Soo-jin hacked another's neck, her blade swift. The third lunged at Taeho, but Soo-jin tackled it, pinning it down. "Shoot!" she yelled. Taeho hesitated, seeing a name tag. Dr. Choi. Was it her father? Soo-jin's eyes widened, but she shook her head. "It's not him. Do it!" Taeho fired, the body slumping. They found the research lab, its door barricaded. Inside, files and a laptop detailed Project Dawn, a vaccine prototype. But footsteps echoed, looters, not infected. A voice sneered, "Well, well, camp kids." It was Park Ji-hoon, a deserter from Gangnam, leading a ragtag crew. "Hand over the goods," he demanded, brandishing a shotgun. Taeho stepped forward. "Not happening." Ji-hoon laughed. "Still a loser, Taeho?" The standoff erupted into chaos. Taeho dove behind a desk, firing at Ji-hoon's men. Soo-jin flung a chair, distracting a looter, then slashed his arm. A bullet grazed Taeho's thigh, pain searing, but he kept shooting. Soo-jin dragged him to cover, her hands shaking. "Don't you dare die!" she hissed, bandaging his wound with a torn sleeve. The soldiers arrived, outgunning the looters. Ji-hoon fled, vowing revenge. The team returned to Gangnam, battered but triumphant, with the laptop and files. Taeho's wound needed stitches, confining him to the medical tent. Soo-jin stayed by his side, sneaking him extra bread. "You're an idiot," she said, but her voice cracked. "I thought I'd lose you." Taeho blushed. "You're stuck with me, princess." She punched his arm lightly, smiling. The camp buzzed with hope over Project Dawn, but cracks emerged. A faction, led by a merchant named Kwon, demanded the research be sold to foreign survivors for weapons. "The military's hoarding it," Kwon shouted at a rally. Taeho's dad warned him, "People are scared. Fear makes them stupid." Soo-jin overheard Kwon plotting to steal the laptop, tipping off Sergeant Kim. The plot was foiled, but Kwon's followers rioted, burning tents. Taeho, hobbling on crutches, helped douse fires, while Soo-jin rallied trainees to guard the lab, amid the chaos. Taeho found Soo-jin on the camp's edge, staring at the river. "What if my parents are gone?" she whispered. "What am I even fighting for?" Taeho took her hand. "For us. for everyone here. You're not alone anymore." She leaned into him, tears falling. "I don't deserve you, Tae-ho." He chuckled. "Maybe not, but I'm here anyway." A week later, scouts reported a massive infected horde approaching Gangnam, drawn by the riot's noise. Worse, Ji-hoon's looters had allied with deserters, planning to attack during the chaos. "They want the research," Kim said, briefing the trainees. "We hold the line or lose everything." Tae-ho, his leg healed, volunteered for the defense. Soo-jin joined, her machete sharpened. "No more running," she said. The battle erupted at midnight. Infected swarmed the barricades, their screams chilling. Tae-ho fired from a rooftop, picking off zombies. Soo-jin fought below, slashing through hordes, her movements fluid. Ji-hoon's gang struck, tossing Molotovs. Tae-ho spotted Ji-hoon aiming at Soo-jin. Ignoring his fear, he leapt to the ground, tackling Ji-hoon. They grappled, Ji-hoon's knife nicking Tae-ho's arm. "You're nothing!" Ji-hoon spat. Tae-ho, fueled by rage, headbutted him, knocking him out. "I'm enough," he growled. The military repelled the horde, and Ji-hoon's gang scattered. Dawn broke, the camp scarred but standing. Project Dawn's files reached scientists in Busan, who confirmed a vaccine was viable. Tae-ho and Soo-jin, exhausted, sat atop a hill overlooking Gangnam. "We did it," Soo-jin said, her hand in his. Tae-ho smiled. "Yeah, and we're not done." 3 months later, Gangnam thrived as a hub for survivors. The vaccine, named Dawn, began distribution, curbing the infection. Tae-ho and Soo-jin, now full-fledged scouts, trained new recruits. Tae-ho's dad opened a kitchen, serving hot meals, while Soo-jin received a letter. Her mother was alive in a Jeju shelter. "Go find her," Tae-ho urged. Soo-jin hesitated. "Only if you come," he grinned. "Deal." One evening, they stood on the Han River's banks, the city's lights flickering back to life. Soo-jin traced Tae-ho's scars, her touch gentle. "I was so wrong about you," she said. "You're my home now." Tae-ho kissed her forehead. "And you're mine." A helicopter roared overhead, carrying vaccines to Incheon. Kids laughed in the camp, a sound Tae-ho hadn't heard in years. "Think we'll ever go back to normal?" Soo-jin asked. Tae-ho shrugged. "Normal's overrated. This is better." As they walked back, hand in hand, a radio crackled. "Seoul's North Zone reclaimed. Volunteers needed." Tae-ho and Soo-jin exchanged a look, their resolve unspoken. They'd keep fighting, for each other, for their family, for a world worth saving. The stars above shone brighter, a promise of tomorrow. Tomorrow.